What's up, XJ family? Doing a little something to the rear suspension of my Jeep that, quite honestly, not too long ago I didn't even know was possible. If you've been wanting a little bit more flex out of your rear leafs and thought that the only way to get better flex out of the rear was longer shackles or less leafs in your leaf pack or something to that effect, then let me introduce you to a little product that my friends at Ironman 4x4 Fabrication build for the rear suspension of the XJ. There's actually two different versions of this. This is called a Shackle Relocation Bracket, or SRB for short, and this one is all pre-welded. They sell it as a weld it yourself option, or as their pre-welded and powder coated version, or they have one that is a no lift SRB, and that's beneficial if you've already got your ride height set exactly how you like it. You just want more articulation in the rear. So as you might have figured out, this installs into the pocket where your shackle normally mounts kind of to the frame of the Jeep, and this is where your shackle then goes. The difference here is about 1.5 inches. So the no lifts do save you that 1.5 inches. They put it exactly the height that you have your Jeep at currently. Of course, they do include hardware with this as well, all grade 8 stuff, high quality hardware that you're going to need for bolting everything together. And then through the shackles and things like that, you're going to use your stock hardware or whatever is on your Jeep right now. So let's get into the install. And first we'll need to start by jacking the Jeep up, of course, and then supporting it off the frame so that the axle and suspension can hang.
So that's the max of my suspension droop, which you can see is pretty well limited by where the shackle contacts the mount pocket here. Pretty crappy design, really, the way that they flared this for the shackle to be able to go back but not come forward. So there's space up in here for it to move, but it pinches itself on that. One of the items that I mentioned that you're going to have to get out of the way for now is going to be your trailer hitch. So it doesn't really matter if you do the shackles first or the trailer hitch first, but might as well get the hitch off here for now. For my particular bumper, at least, I'm going to need to remove the entire bumper because the brackets that I have are in the way of getting those nut strips inside. So there's where the nut strip goes in, and I guess this still has a bolt in it somewhere. So that's the one that I made, and some of the nuts just weren't quite perfectly aligned. Well, it's pretty easy to tell why mine never worked so well. That hole is aligned. The other three are about half a hole off from where they should be. And these are a little wider and beefier. Wasn't too far off in my design, but that's going to work a lot better. That is the inside of your shackle mount. So that's the bolt that goes through the upper part of the shackle. Go ahead, and if you haven't had these off recently, blast that with some PB Blaster or Croil or whatever your preferred penetrating lube might be, because that one is going to be probably pretty stuck if you've never removed it before. Thankfully, both of mine are really loose, not loose, but they're very free spinning because I've had this apart a number of times recently. So you should kind of be able to find a balance where this bolt is pretty free and you can almost get it out by hand, or you can get it out by hand. Alright, so that's the bolt that goes from the leaf spring to the shackle. And then the bolt that holds the shackle into the frame. And that's all you need to remove to be able to put the Ironman box up in there. So let's go ahead and grab that box. Make sure you do the other side as well. And you don't want to be jacking one side down because that's going to make the other side impossible to get those bolts out when they're canted like that. So Make sure you have both sides out, and then you can drop the axle as far as you want. Give yourself some room to work here. There's only one way that these can go, and it's pretty obvious. So this goes up inside of your frame here. That aligns that nicely. I'll leave that loose for a moment. I'm going to get some of the bolts started up into the frame here to make sure everything aligns. Just know that you're going to be taking these off again. It's not a final fitment for all of this. But you definitely do want to put these in and snug them down just to where they start to touch the metal plate here, which is going to give this enough wiggle room so that you can get this bolt in easily enough. All right, and then once that one's snug, then we can torque things down together. However, you know, I'm going to be pulling these back out now to put my trailer hitch on. Look at the passenger side here. I just want to make this very clear that this is to be the closest thing to the frame. This side, on the factory 01XJ, you have an exhaust mount and you have an exhaust heat shield. So the heat shield and exhaust mount need to go after this. So just to be extremely clear, this must go all the way to the frame for it to be safe and not being bent or you know, some bolts being more strained than others. Also want to use your factory bolt here. Ironman sends you a new longer bolt. There's 6, I guess, of the same size bolt and then 2 longer bolts. So your longer bolt from them is what you're going to use on the Shackle. Use your factory bolt in this spring pocket. Alright, so I'm just getting that started. Still some play in that, and then I'm going to snug those bolts in like I was talking about on the other side too. I feel like putting these bolts in first, as far as I'm thinking about it, is just more aligning the plate and the nut strip than it is about really making sure that this thing is tight to anything, because its primary locating factor is this bolt up here. And you want to make sure, of course, that you put things back together the way you took them apart. But just as a reminder, this shackle bolt cannot go the other way, or it will be contacting your exhaust all the time, or with that tail of the bolt sticking out, it could be causing other problems with your hitch and so forth while articulating. So definitely want to make sure that that's going towards the outside, but then on the upper bolts, so that you can change the position of this more easily, put the bolt in from that side with the nut on the inside of it. You want about a 45-degree shackle angle. That's what's ideal. So what we're really going to need to do here is to experiment a little bit. And obviously, whatever angle I'm at here with no weight on this is going to be much more severe with weight on it. So I'm going to start in the middle here and kind of see where that lands me. Again, I'm running a slightly longer than factory shackle. For comparison here, I have a factory shackle. So it's you know, 1.5 inches or 2 inches maybe at most different in length. If I really feel like this is too much lift for what I'm going for, then I will just need to swap out for a shorter shackle, which really with this setup makes it a little bit easier to do. I don't even have the weight completely off of the jack stands, and again, I'm in the middle of the 5 holes in here, and that's too much shackle angle for me, so I'm going to move it back 1 hole and see how that affects it. Alright, there's liftoff, and that looks pretty much about where I stopped before. I was just thinking, oh, I can with the wheels back on and everything at this point, which I guess I could, but I'm going to want to pull those 3 bolts out of each side again to put the trailer hitch back on and my bumper mount. So at this point I do not want to take the jack stands out and do all that. I'm going to need to let the axle relax again while I put those in and get those 3 bolts tying back into this plate. I would hate to have that plate torque in the box and bend something while I'm tidying this up. Well, I thought I was going to get away without having to cut this exhaust hanger bracket at all, but it turns out that I have to, so just kind of cutting it right along this line here, just trying to trim it away from the new bracket. Everything's bolted back in and tightened down really, really well. I cut my old nut strip and use this as kind of a flag nut to be able to have that nut tighten there without having to get a wrench up behind my bumper. So I've got 4 bolts that hold in both the trailer hitch and my new SRBs. And then don't forget there's also a 5th bolt actually for the nut strip that just ties in back here. That's not holding anything that we've installed in there. It's just an extra bolt to hold the nut strip in, and if you've got anything, you know, that's pulling on that nut strip, that's going to be an extra anchor point for it. I think that balanced out my suspension really, really well. I will probably crank up my ACOS in the front just about a ½ inch, just because I would like a little bit more up travel. I was definitely expecting, I mean, this tire would have been weightless before, but I was expecting to see the shackle at least straight. Shackle's not straight. Shackle is still at a pretty decent angle there. Here is very stuffed, but it's not on the bump stop, and I'm not rubbing anything anywhere. So I've actually had these installed for a little while now, and it definitely does improve the ride on the street. I did make one adjustment to them after using them for a bit, because it just kind of seemed like the back end settled down a little bit more than when I had initially installed it. I also didn't have the swing out arm on my rear bumper when I first had this set up in those first couple shots. So I settled down a little bit more, and I moved the shackle back to the furthest back position now. Getting the shackle in the right spot is kind of where you'll want to play around with that a little bit. The first way that I had it looked good. After a couple weeks of driving it around, things had settled, and it was definitely not where I wanted it to be long term. So having adjusted it, it definitely rides nicer. It rides the way I would expect a leaf spring vehicle to ride in the rear. So just know that dialing that in might take a couple tries. Adjusting the shackle is really simple. It's similar to that last couple steps of installation, and you really just need the socket and wrench to take out that one bolt, possibly a pry bar or hammer to get that out and back in. But then it's just moving that shackle back, reinstalling the bolt, tightening everything down. Beautiful, beautiful. Not already a subscriber, now would be a great time to go ahead and subscribe. We've just hit over 400,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And you guys giving us a thumbs up on the video definitely helps out the YouTube algorithm and make sure lots of people get to see this video. So yeah, that's it for this time, guys. Hope this helps you understand a little bit more about some options for your rear suspension and ways to get a little bit better articulation and just smoother articulation overall out of the rear. Possibly a little bit of lift if you go that route, and some better handling characteristics. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.